Hello dear students. In previous lecture we have discussed about the normal placenta and umbilical cord and amniotic fluid. In today's lecture we will discuss about the abnormalities of placenta and the abnormalities of cord. We all know the survival of fetus depends on the integrity and efficiency of placenta. If the placenta fails to supply the fetus or if it is insufficient, then it can lead to the IUGR or eventually leads to intrauterine death. So placenta must be normal, it must be sufficient and it must be efficient to supply the fetus. Here the first condition is the placenta substantiata. One or more small lobes of placenta, size of cotyledons, may be placed at varying distances from the placental margin. The distribution of cotyledons or the lobes may be at the varying distances. There will be no equal distribution of cotyledons in the placental uh, margin. In case of absence of communicating blood vessels, it is called as placenta spuria. If there is the absence of blood vessels which are connecting each other, that condition is called as the placenta spuria, which may be occur in the placenta substantiata. The incidence of this condition is 3%. Here you can see this is the substantiate placenta where one or more lobe may be separated from the accessory lobes in the membrane. It may be at variable distance which will be away from the main placental mass. So here one lobe might be two lobes are separated from the uh, main placental accessory lobes, but they are containing in the same membrane. This condition is known as the placenta substantiata. The retention of substantiate lobes can be detected during inspection of the placenta and membranes by noting the torn blood vessels at the margin of placenta or extension of blood vessels into the membranes. So, the midwife must examine every placenta for evidence of retained lobe. Manual exploration of the uterus and removal of substantiate lobe must be indicated in case of retention occurs. If the substantiate lobe is retained following birth of the placenta, it may lead to postpartum hemorrhage, subinvolution. Subinvolution, that is the where uterus will be boggy, it will be very soft and it will not return to its pre-pregnant state. Then uterine sepsis, infection may occur and polyp formation. Treatment for this: whenever the diagnosis of missing lobe is made, exploration of the uterus and removal of the lobe under general anesthesia is to be done. Next condition is the placental extracorales. It has two types, that is the circumvallate placenta and placenta marginata. This is the circumvallate placenta where a placental anomaly will observed on the fetal surface as a thick white ring, which gives the impression that the central portion of somewhat look as depressed. The fetal surface is divided into a central depressed zone surrounded by a thickened white ring which is usually complete. So here you can see the white ring on the fetal surface. Vessels radiate from the cord insertion as far as the ring and then disappear from view. The peripheral zone outside the ring is thicker and the edge is elevated and rounded. Clinical significance of placenta circumvallata or circumvallate placenta are: there may be increased chances of abortion, then antepartum hemorrhage, FGR baby means growth retarded baby, preterm delivery, then retained placenta and membranes. Second one is the placenta marginata. Here, the ring is located at the edge or margin of the placenta and is raised by the presence of degenerated decidua and fibrin. A thin fibrous ring is present at the margin of the chorionic plate where the fetal vessels appear to terminate. Next condition is the placenta membrana. Here, the encroachment of some part over the lower segment enter imperfect separation in the third stage of labor. Then chance of retained placenta is more here and manual removal will become more difficult. In this condition, the margin of placenta or membranes will be the same, but the lobes or inner part will be separated. In fact, it is one placenta divided into two or more parts, either completely separated or joined in parts. Next is the placenta accreta, increta and percreta. These abnormalities are a serious variation in which trophoblastic tissue invade the myometrium to varying depths. They are much more likely with placenta previa or with implantation over a prior uterine incision or perforation. This is the image where you can see the placenta accreta, placenta increta and placenta percreta. Placenta accreta accounts for the 75 to 78% of cases. Then placenta increta accounts for 17% and placenta percreta accounts for the 5%. First we will discuss the placenta accreta. The condition is usually associated with when the placenta is implanted in lower segment, that is called as the placenta previa, or over the previously injured sites as in caesarean section, as there is a scar or there will be incision taken on the lower uterine side. So it is one of the cause which can lead to the placenta accreta. Then dilatation and curettage operation, then manual removal of placenta if taken place before, and myomectomy, that is the removal of myometrium. If there is an absence of myometrium, in that case the placenta will erode into the perimetrium. Diagnosis: The diagnosis is only made during attempted manual removal when the plane of cleavage between the placenta and uterine wall cannot be made out. Second thing, ultrasound imaging or color Doppler and MRI have all been valuable in the diagnosis of placenta accreta. Pathological confirmation, there will be absence of decidua bacillus, absence of Nitabach fibrinoid layer, varying degree of penetration of the villi into the muscle bundle or up to the serosal layer. The risk includes hemorrhage, shock, infection, and rarely inversion of the uterus. The other abnormalities of placenta includes larger or heavier than the normal placenta or may be seen with the large fetus, fetal syphilis and erythroblastosis. Sometimes placenta may be larger than the normal or sometimes it may be smaller or lighter than the normal placenta. Smaller placenta can lead to growth retardation in the fetus. Another one is the color of placental tissue is markedly lighter. This condition may be caused by fetal anemia such as those found in the erythroblastosis. Next is the excessive infarct formation. That is, the formation of cotyledons happen due to disease process such as severe maternal hypertension, severe preeclampsia or eclampsia. Next is the edema of placenta. Edematous placenta is mushy, thick and pale. The fluid can be squeezed from it. This may be caused by severe maternal heart disease, diabetes or nephritis and by severe erythroblastosis. Next one is the tumors which are found in the association with prematurity and polyhydramnios. Then syphilitic placenta. It is abnormally large, pale and yellow-gray colored placenta. These are the abnormalities of placenta. Next to this, we will discuss about the cord abnormalities. Abnormal length of cord, in that short cord. Cord less than 20 cm or commonly relative due to entanglement of the cord round the fetal part. In exceptional circumstances, the cord may be absent and the placenta may be attached to the liver as in exomphalos. A short cord may be a causative factor in failure of fetus to descend. In such an event, it might additionally cause abruptio placenta, umbilical hernia, fetal distress, rupture of the cord, shoulder dystocia, or a combination of these. So, the recognition of short cord usually does not take place until there is evidence of a problem. Therefore, it should be considered as a possibility whenever descent does not take place in the presence of an adequate pelvis and good contraction. These are the clinical significance of short cord, which will prevent the descent of presenting part, especially during the labor, instead of good contractions. Then separation of normally situated placenta, then favor malpresentation, acute inversion, fetal growth restriction, intrapartum distress, failure of external version, and twofold risk of fetal death. Second condition is the long cord. Long cords are more common than the short cords. Generally, it has no significance. However, a long cord becomes looped around the fetal body or neck, causing a relative short cord. It can also become knotted or prolapsed in front of the presenting part. The clinical significance are the cord prolapse, cord entanglement around the neck or the body of the fetus, true knot or false knot. Next condition is the single umbilical artery. The incidence of single artery to be 0.63% in live born babies, 1.92% in perinatal deaths, and 3% in twins. It is more common in twins and in babies born of diabetic mothers or in polyhydramnios. About one-third of babies born with only one umbilical artery will have multiple and severe malformations. Here you can clearly see that there is only two openings are there in the cord, that is one for the umbilical vein and second one is for the umbilical artery. That is abnormal, where there should be three blood vessels in the umbilical cord, two umbilical arteries and one vein. Instead of three, only two blood vessels are present here. It is frequently associated with congenital malformation of the fetus. Then renal and genital anomalies, trisomy 18, are common in the babies born with the single umbilical artery. There is increased chances of abortion, prematurity, growth retardation, and perinatal mortality. Next, abnormalities with the cord insertion. In that first, Betel-Duot placenta. The cord is attached to the margin of the placenta. If associated with low implantation of the placenta, there is chance of cord compression in vaginal delivery, leading to fetal anoxia or even death. Otherwise, it has got little clinical significance. Here you can see a Betel-Duo placenta, a variation in which umbilical cord is inserted at the edge or margin of the placenta. The marginal insertion of the cord occurs in less than 10% of placentas, and it is considered a normal insertion sometimes. Next is the velamentous placenta. The umbilical vessels spread within the membranes at the distance from placental margin, which they reach surrounded only by a fold of amnion. Although their incidence is approximately 1%, velamentous insertion develops in more commonly with placenta previa and multifetal gestations. This is the image of velamentous insertion, where the cord is inserted into the membrane at some distance from the edge of placenta. The umbilical vessels from the cord run through the membranes for a variable distance before each enters the placenta. Velamentous insertion occurs approximately 1% of the time, with an increased incidence in the event of multiple gestation. A velamentous insertion can be dangerous for the fetus. Rupture of membrane may also rupture a fetal blood vessel because their portion is flimsy since they are covered with the amnion. A velamentous insertion, when noticed upon inspection of placenta after its delivery, a disaster might have already happened. In such cases, noting the anomaly would be of diagnostic value. Third one is the vasa previa. If the lesion of blood vessels happen to transverse through the membranes overlying the internal os in front of the presenting part, the condition is called as vasa previa. Here you can see first image is the vasa previa with velamentous umbilical cord insertion, and second one is the vasa previa with multi-lobed placenta. In first image the placenta is single but the membranes are stretched in which the blood vessels are opened. In the second image the placenta is divided into two, where some of the middle blood vessels comes in front of the presenting part. It is dangerous anomaly with a high perinatal mortality if rupture occurs. Vasa previa refers to the blood vessels covered with amnion and running between the chorion and amnion, which present first at the cervical os by crossing the presenting part. With fetal descent, the rupture of membrane and blood vessels are subject to compressed and rupture before the descent of fetal head or the presenting part. Vasa previa may also occur when there is a succentuate placenta, also when in the conjunction with the velamentous insertion of cord. Vasa previa is extremely rare, however, it should be thought of as a possibility when the midwife is not sure of what is felt at the cervical os on vaginal examination. Examination should include feeling for pulsation synchronous with the fetal heart in questionable presenting part. Management of the vasa previa. In the presence of fetal bleeding, urgent delivery is essential either vaginally or by the cesarean section. The newborn's hemoglobin should be estimated and, if necessary, blood transfusion must be carried out. If the baby is dead, vaginal delivery is awaited. Next is the bipartite placenta. Two complete and separate parts are present, each with the cord leaving it. The bipartite cord joins short distance from the two parts of the placenta. Then tripartite placenta. A tripartite placenta is similar but with the three distinct parts. Next are the cord abnormalities capable of impeding blood flow. In that first knot, knot may be true or false. First we will see the false knot. False knot appear as knob protruding from the cord surface and are focal redundancies of a vessel or Wharton's jelly with no clinical significance. This is the uh, knot of the cord. False knotting occurs when the cord appears to be knotted. but instead has kinking of the blood vessel within the cord, or it may be due to accumulation of Wharton's jelly on the cord. Next is the true knot. Active fetal movements create the cord knotting. Incidence is approximately 1%, and these are more common in monoamniotic twins. The risk of stillbirth is increased 5 to 10-fold. This is the true knot, which occurs when the fetus has passed through a loop in the cord and a real knot has been created. True knots are liable to occur with small fetus, long cord, large amount of amniotic fluid, and multiple gestations within a single amnion. So here you can see a true knot of the cord, which can lead to the decreased blood supply to the fetus. Next we will see the loops. The cord frequently becomes coiled around portions of the fetus. These loops around the fetal neck are termed as a nuchal cord. Several large studies have reported one loop of nuchal cord in 20 to 34% of deliveries, two loops in 2.5 to 5%, and three loops in 0.2 to 0.5%. This is the loop of cord. The average length of cord is 50 to 55 centimeter, as we all know, but if the cord is longer, measuring about 100 centimeter, will become looped. Single or multiple looping may cause a short cord with all its complications. Looping of cord around the neck may cause fetal distress due to tightening of the cord around the neck during descent. Therefore, it is important to check for a cord around the neck as soon as the baby's head is born. As labor progresses, contractions may compress the cord vessel and create fetal heart rate deceleration that persists until the contraction ceases. Till the mother is having uterine contractions, that till that time the baby will have decelerations in the heart rate, means there will be negative feedback or decreased in the heart rate, which can lead to the severe fetal distress and eventually fetal death. Next is the phonic presentation. Cord prolapse or fetal heart rate abnormalities is an associated labor finding. Phonic presentation may be identified antenatally with sonography and with color flow Doppler. If a phonic presentation is present during labor, cesarean delivery is typically indicated. This is the image of phonic presentation, where the cord may be along with or in front of the presenting part. Then umbilical cord stricture. This is a focal narrowing of the cord diameter that typically develops in the area of fetal umbilical insertion. Absence of Wharton's jelly and stenosis or obliteration of cord vessels at the narrow segment are characteristics of the pathological features. The fetus with the cord stricture may be stillborn. This is the image where you can see umbilical cord stricture, where the diameter of the umbilical cord is decreased at the varying degree, and there is a complete cessation of blood through the cord. It can lead to the malnourished or post-mature newborns. There may be severe growth retardation, and most of the chances with this case are the stillbirth. Next condition is the hematoma associated with short cord trauma and entanglement. They may result from a varix rupture, usually of the umbilical vein, with effusion of blood into the cord, may be caused by umbilical vessel venipuncture. So here you can see on the cord there is a hematoma. Next is the cyst formation. True cysts are epithelium-lined remnant of the allantois and may coexist with a persistently patent urages. In contrast, the more common pseudocysts form from local degeneration of Waters jelly. The cyst may be true or pseudo. True means which are made up from the epithelium lining of the cord, and pseudocyst which may be hiding uh, and which may form from the local degeneration of the Wharton's jelly. Single umbilical cord cyst found in the first trimester tend to resolve completely, whereas multiple cysts may pertain miscarriage or aneuploidy. Moreover, pseudocysts persisting beyond this can be associated with structural and chromosomal abnormality, then defects, especially of the trisomy 18 and 13. Next is the thrombosis. Intrauterine thrombosis of umbilical cord vessel is rare event. Approximately 70% are venous, 20% are venous and arterial, and 10% are arterial thrombosis. Thank you. So here we have discussed about the abnormalities of placenta and abnormalities of umbilical cord. First is the placenta subcenturiata, where one or more lobe will be separated from the main portion of placenta but will contained in the same membrane. Then circumvallate placenta, where the edge of the membrane will be near to the center, which will form a thick ring, and inner portion will be like depressed. Then placenta marginata, where a thick ring will form on the margins of placenta. Next, placenta membranica, where the membranes of placenta will be retained inside the uterus. Next, placenta accreta, increta and percreta. The normal implantation is into the endometrium. Next to the normal implantation, on another side we can see there is a placenta increta, where in the pinkish color, that is the placental encroachment, it is up to the that is crossing the myometrium and it is going to reach to the perimetrium. Next to that, the placenta percreta or placenta percreta, where the encroachment of placenta will go beyond the perimetrium. And last one, placenta accreta, where The encroachment will be till the myometrium. After that, we have discussed the cord abnormalities. In that, short cord, where the length of cord will be uh, less than 20 to 30 centimeter. Then long cord, where the cord will be more than 70 to 80 centimeter. Next, single umbilical artery, where there will be presence of only two blood vessels into one umbilical cord. Next, Battledore placenta, where the cord insertion will be at the edge or margin of the placenta. Then filamentous insertion of the cord, where cord will attach to the membranes, and from membranes till the placenta the cord will be separately fused with the placenta. Then vasa previa, vasa means vessels, previa means lower, where the blood vessels of the umbilical cord or placenta will be below the presenting part. Then bipartite placenta and tripartite placenta. This is the false knot, then true knot, then loop of the cord, where the cord will entangle around the fetal body or fetal neck. Then funic presentation, that is the cord presentation. Lastly, umbilical cord tincture, hematoma of the umbilical cord, cyst may be true or pseudo, thrombosis. This all we have discussed today. So thank you again. If you have any doubts, then you can ask me.